In this video, we're going to be looking at adding fractions and mixed numbers. Our first example, we're finding the sum of 3/4 and 1/6. And the way we want to do this is by figuring out the least common denominator. 4 breaks up into 2 times 2, and 6 breaks up into 2 times 3. So for our LCD, we're going to take 2 2's and a 3. So 2 times 2 times 3 gives us 12. So our denominator is 12. For our first fraction, 4, in order to go from 4 to 12, we had to multiply this by 3. So if we multiplied our denominator by 3, we need to multiply our numerator by 3. And 3 times 3 is 9. For our second fraction, in order to go from 6 to 12, we had to multiply our denominator by 2. So we're going to multiply our numerator by 2 as well. 1 times 2 is 2. Once you have the same denominator for each of your fractions, the way you add them together is you add the numerators. 9 plus 2 is 11, and our denominator is 12, so our answer is 11/12. Now, there's a second way that you could approach this problem. Rather than figuring out the least common denominator, you could simply multiply your denominators together. So we could do 4 times 6 to get a denominator of 24. In order to get 24 from 4, we had to multiply that by 6. So we have to multiply our numerator by 6. In order to get the denominator of 6 to become 24, we had to multiply it by 4. So we're going to multiply our numerator by 4. 3 times 6 is 18. 1 times 4 is 4. Now that we have common denominators, we can add the numerators together, and we get 22 over 24. However, you'll notice this is not in lowest terms. 22 is 2 times 11, and 24 is 2 times 12. We can cancel out the 2's, and we end up with 11/12. Let's take a look at our second example. In this example, we are adding together 3 fractions, but the process is still the same. We're going to come up with a common denominator for our 3 fractions. 9 breaks up into 3 times 3, 6 into 2 times 3, and then 5 is already prime. So for our least common denominator, we're going to take 1 2, 2 3's, and a 5. So 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 gives us a least common denominator of 90. In order to go from 9 to 90, we had to multiply by 10. So we're going to multiply our numerator of 2 by 10 to get 20. In order to go from 6 to 90, we had to multiply by 15. So I'm going to multiply my numerator of 1 by 15. And then in order to go from a denominator of 5 to 90, we had to multiply by 18. So I'm going to multiply my numerator of 3 by 18 to get 54. Now we add up all of our numerators, and we get 89 over 90. 2 more examples. Let's look at finding the sum of 9/14 and 9/10. 14 breaks up into 2 times 7, and 10 breaks up into 2 times 5. So we're going to use a 2, a 7, and a 5 for the least common denominator, which gives us 70. 14 times 5 is 70, so we're going to do 9 times 5 to get 45. And then 10 times 7 will give us 70, so we're going to do 9 times 7 to get 63. And when we add the numerators together, we get 108 over 70. Now you'll notice this is an improper fraction. It's a fraction greater than 1. And we know this because this number here, the numerator, is larger than the denominator. When you run into this situation, generally you want to convert it to a mixed number. So we know that 70 goes into 108 one time, and then we want to figure out how much is left over. So 108 minus 70 gives us 38 left over. So our mixed number would be 1 and 38/70ths. However, we're still not quite done because this fraction can be reduced. 38 is the same as 2 times 19, and 70 is the same as 2 times 35. We can cancel out those 2's and we get 1 and 19/35 as our answer. Last example, adding together mixed numbers. If you'll recall, you can think of a mixed number as simply the sum of two numbers. So this first one, 2 1/3, is the same as 2 plus 1/3. And then 5 7/8 is the same as 5 plus 7/8. And finally 3 1/2, that's the same as 3 plus 1/2. What this means is we can choose to add up our whole numbers first, and then add up our fractions. So I'm first going to add my whole numbers, 2 plus 5 plus 3. That gives me 10. Then I'm going to deal with my fractions, 1/3, 7/8, and 1/2. The least common denominator for these three fractions is 24. I would have to multiply 3 by 8 to get 24, so 1/3 is also 8/24. I would have to multiply 8 by 3, so this fraction is 21 over 24, and 1/2 would be 12 over 24. Next step, I add up all my numerators, and I end up with 41 over 24, which is an improper fraction, so we should pull out 24 from the top to give us a final answer of 11 17/24.